The fourth arc, but I'm not gonna get into the whole convoluted. I'm not gonna get into the whole convoluted story of the entirety of the fourth palace, but basically you find out that Sojiro, the guy who's been taking care of you, or I guess keeping you in his attic, is living with another child who he used to know the mother of, and he ended up adopting her because she was in a bad situation. Futaba is a shut-in, and she is very intelligent and very good at hacking, and also she has a palace that is ruled by the distortion of her self-hatred, because she thinks she's the reason that her mother died, or, well, allegedly killed herself. And like I said, I'm not going to get into all the details of the story, but basically the fourth palace is the most fleshed out, deepest, and best one up to this point, in my opinion. And the fact that Futaba is not only the ruler of the palace, but the person who ends up rebelling and getting her own persona and fighting against the illusion of her dead mother is pretty fucking awesome. And I think out of all the main Phantom Thieves, she is definitely one of, if not the most well-developed, and she's basically like a mascot for the game. I mean, her design immediately stands out. I knew her design way before I even knew what the fuck this game was. And in general, she has so much personality and quirk to her that it's very hard to not like her. And I would definitely say that she is even more well-written than Makoto. But she's also kind of like your sister in the game, so don't fucking romance her, you creep. But anyway, you end up helping her get over her mother's death and realize that it was actually most likely orchestrated by some sort of group of men in black type of people. So she becomes the group's navigator and hacker and technology expert. You don't actually use her in battles. Her persona is just this UFO that kind of floats off screen and helps you randomly throughout the battle. After the fourth palace, it is summer vacation, so you get to just chill the entire fucking time with your friends, do whatever the fuck you want, and then you get to go to Hawaii when the school year begins. The Hawaii trip is like the peak of chilling. It is the middle resting point of the game. But anyway, you come back from Hawaii. At this point in the game, Morgana is starting to feel neglected because, first of all, you got Makoto, which ended up being a very useful person in your team, and also as intelligent, if not more intelligent, than Morgana. So his whole role of strategizer kind of became pointless. And then you got Oracle, aka Futaba, who can hack into the metaverse and see things that not even Morgana could, or do things that not even Morgana could. So at this point, he's starting to feel pretty much like he's useless. And the fact that I almost never put him in my party while fighting solidified that very much, but he subconsciously feels like he's more of a burden than he is useful. But he manifests that as in, fuck you guys, I can do all this shit on my own, I don't need any of you. And that's comes off as very annoying to a lot of people. But I completely get it, and I understand where he's coming from, because before this arc happens, you see him slowly comment on how he feels kind of useless, or he's like, oh wow, you guys sure are getting good at this. You basically don't even need me anymore, and that's very true. But anyway, this ends up leading into Morgana running away and meeting Haru, the newest character and newest addition to the Phantom Thieves. And her arc is really boring. Well, okay, a lot of people love Haru. She's great, she's sweet, she's rich, she likes plants, violence, and she's very nice. And her dad dies. Those are her character traits, and that's about it. Now, I'm not gonna shit on Haru. I like all the characters in this game, but it's really fun to shit on Haru. And the fifth palace is of her father's. He owns McDonald's, or this universe's equivalent of McDonald's. And his whole palace and thing is kind of boring, but on purpose. I mean, it's the most generic up to this point until the very end, where he ends up dying. Well, okay, should I get to that? Should I build up to that? Nah, I'm just gonna keep going. But anyway, you go into this palace. It's the most annoying palace, I'm not gonna lie. It's the fucking vent Among Us space map bullshit. I needed to look up the tutorial to that both playthroughs. I did not know what the fuck to do there. And in general, the robots' designs are very boring, and the whole boss fight is kind of bland, and everything about the fifth palace is really meh. Still very good, still very well executed, but when it compared to other parts of the game, it's like, you know, you're starting to get like, alright, come on, is this really going somewhere? Because at this point, stuff gets predictable. Or at least in the original game it does. While in Royal, before Okumura confesses and eventually dies, we'll get to that later. And before that happens, you end up meeting Kasumi randomly near the new stadium in the city, and suddenly another palace gets unlocked, and she unlocks her persona, and it's like, what the fuck is going on? When I played that shit, I was so thrown off, and I can imagine people who haven't played the original being very, very surprised by that. And that makes things a lot more interesting and keeps you way more motivated to keep playing, which I think is why they put it right there, because at this point the game is pretty like predictable, but it's done on purpose. But anyway, you end up beating Haru's dad, and as you're leaving, this shadowy, mysterious figure, which previous palace owners have mentioned, comes in and shoots him in the back, which leads to him dying on live television, which makes things certainly more interesting at this point. But before we get to that, let's talk about Goro Akechi, the detective that throughout the game has been exploring the Phantom Thieves and has been going on TV saying that they're not real justice. Akechi in the original game is this automatic character. You don't hang out with him, you just meet him, or he meets you randomly at points. You end up evolving your confidant with him slowly, automatically throughout the game. But in Royal, you get to choose when you want to hang out with him and do whatever the fuck you want with him, and you become pretty close friends with him, which is, you know, this fun thing because he doesn't know that you are the Phantom Thieves, and he often talks to you about them because he finds your opinions on the Phantom Thieves very interesting. And in Royal, his character development and the things you do as you hang out with him is far, far better than in the original, where it just automatically progresses throughout the story and you care way more about him in Royal. Why is this important? Well, because he also finds out that you are the Phantom Thieves, because he is a detective after all, and a fucking student council president can find out, he can also find out. Also, him and Makoto are very similar, because both of them have adults that expect very much of them, and they also work very hard to achieve those things, but never get a lot of real recognition for it. Well, Akechi is a celebrity, so I guess that fucking goes against what I just said. Both of them get controlled by adults because they're lonely, and that's the only real validation that they get, until Joker helps them learn to fight for themselves. Well, I say that, but well, he helps Makoto learn to fight for herself, but in Akechi's case, yeah, I should get to that later. But anyway, Akechi finds out you're the Phantom Thieves, and he basically blackmails you into giving up and not being the Phantom Thieves anymore, or else he'll reveal your identities to everyone and have you arrested. But Akechi also knows that you're not the ones responsible for Okumura's death and for other things that happened earlier in the game that I forgot to mention, which are mental shutdowns that people suddenly had out of nowhere without explanation, which are also the Phantom Thieves presumed to be the masked figure that ended up killing Okumura and was mentioned by the other palace owners. And Akechi also believes you and thinks that there is another culprit, and so he agrees to help you catch him, and then after that, he wants you to stop being the Phantom Thieves forever. So then there's this scene in the interrogation room again, you cut back to the future, and Sei is like, alright, why did you go after me next? And you're like, what? Turns out the Sixth Palace is hers. The way you decide to draw the culprit out is by using Sai Najima. Sai Nijima, fuck. Sai is the head of the investigations on the Phantom Thieves, so she has the most evidence and most help and resources to capture them. So you end up going after her because if you change her heart, then she'll stop going after you. But this is also the perfect chance to draw out the real culprit, because he would also obviously want to get rid of Sai because she is investigating the mental shutdowns. Anyway, so yeah, Palace 6. Oh shit. It is the best one so far. Sorry, Futaba. The whole thing, the whole casino design, the atmosphere, the fact that you have to go and rise up and get more and more coins to get higher and higher, and you have to cheat, the cheating systems in the casino, the fucking music, oh my god. And apparently Goro has already had his persona awakening earlier, because he was pulled into the Fifth Palace with you, and he saw the black figure kill Okumura, and he noticed Akechi and was gonna threaten to kill him, but then he had an awakening and managed to escape. But anyway, you end up getting to Sai, taking her down, one of the best boss battles in my opinion, and now you're back at the beginning of the game. And now she's got the whole story, and she's just as confused as she was at the beginning, if not more. But then your character starts remembering shit that he forgot. Things that don't quite add up are starting to come back to him. And you start kind of putting it together, and then Sai asks you, hey, are these all the Phantom Thieves? And you have to answer yes or no. And I answered yes the first time I played it, because I trusted her. I thought she could be trusted. And once you answer yes, Akechi comes in and shoots you in the head, and you die, game over. Redo that shit. Answered, no, I don't know who those people are. And then, of course, what happens instead is that Akechi comes in and shoots you in the head and you die, game over. But not really. This whole twist, fantastically executed. One of my favorite moments in gaming I can think of. This entire Sixth Palace arc, fan-fucking-tastic. It turns out Akechi is the black figure. No shit, I saw that coming 5,000 miles away. But in Royal, it definitely is less obvious because you just get to hang out with him and be a good friend with him. And you know, he's kind of suspicious at times, but he's a pretty nice character, and you're like, yeah, I like you. And then he throws his glove in your face, and he's like, I will not rest until I defeat you. And you're like, okay, well, you can't be the Black Mask, because that would be too obvious, right? But anyway, yeah, he comes in and he's like, well, fuck you. And he shoots you, and you're dead. And you're like, what the fuck is happening? And then news gets out that you killed yourself, and all your friends react, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? Is this the good ending? And then Ryuji smiles, and your character just standing there smugly smiling, you know. It turns out there's this phone that Futaba hacked that you give to Sei, and she shows it to Akechi, and that transports him to the metaverse, to her palace. But a palace is just one place, but really the whole world is reconstructed as the person sees it. And she knows the interrogation room, so she has it in her head because it's part of her mental world, right? So Akechi comes in, and then suddenly they get transported there. But Sei has no fucking idea, Akechi has no fucking idea, because it's very subtle. Akechi kills a shadow version of yourself. You in real life are still alive, and you get to go back and meet everyone, and the whole plan gets explained. I'm not gonna go into detail, because there's a lot of shit here. Literally, the game takes like half an hour to explain it, right? I'm not gonna fucking talk about it. But the point is, it's a great twist. A bit confusing, like when you first play, you're like, wait, what the fuck? But then it's very satisfying in the end when everything clicks. So now you're like, okay, real shit. Who the fuck is doing all this? Who's causing the mental shutdowns? Who's
Jeffrey Bezos, Jeffrey Bezos, Jeffrey Bezos.
And you end up finding out that Akechi works for Shido. Shido is running for Prime Minister of Japan. He is incredibly popular in the public eye, but Shido is the reason why Akechi is doing all this. And he's also, big shocker, the guy who accused you of assaulting him after you stepped in to stop him from assaulting a woman at the very, very beginning of your story. And he's the reason why you got transferred here to begin with. And now at this point in the game, your death has been basically reported throughout the whole world, and everyone thinks that the Phantom Thieves are gone forever. And Shido is like, victory is mine, everything is going well. But then you're obviously still alive and plan a comeback, which is another great, awesome scene where you get to reveal your final calling card to the whole world. Palace 7, Shido's big fat yacht. Fantastic shit. Love the vibe. Music is great. And at the end of the palace, you go into the engine room and fight a bunch of Yakuza, which is a great fucking boss battle, especially because they finished Yakuza 0 right before starting this game. And then you get to go and fight Shido. Except no, because Akechi comes in. Akechi wants to kill Shido himself to get revenge on abandoning him and his mother when they were very young. But he won't join you or help you. He's gonna get rid of you because he hates you. Because even though he's worked so hard his entire life, you're the closest thing to any real friend that he's ever had. And you're his rival. You're his biggest enemy. So you fight him and you beat him and you're like, come on dude, help us just get rid of your asshole father. And he's like, fuck you. And he goes berserk and reveals his black costume. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna put these two images on screen together. Rest in peace, Kentaro Miura. But in the end, you beat him, and it's just sad, man. Like, he is a mirror version of you. He got the same power as you did from Igor, but a few years earlier, and he had no one there with him. He just decided to use them to take advantage of things and work his way up and get to his father and help him with his powers. But in the end, he was only being used. And that gets revealed when the shadow version of Akechi comes in and is there to kill him. And he reveals that Shido was going to get rid of Akechi either way. Shido's been using him his entire life. The only time Akechi got to really relax and just enjoy life was when he hung out with you. Which is why, you know, a lot of people debate about, like, what's the real best romantic interest in the game. Akechi is. There's no question. Which is another reason why Makoto is the best, because Makoto has similar... Like I said before, Makoto and Akechi are pretty similar, right? But you can't date Akechi, so, you know, next best thing. And he ends up rescuing you and dooming himself. And this hits so much harder in Royal because you hung out with him and because specifically because of a dialogue option that is only available if you hang out with him enough. And that is, "I'll hold on to your glove" that he threw at your face earlier, declaring that you are his rival and that he will beat you. And then he dies.
His signal is gone. I'm only getting the weaklings. No.
Anyway, you go up to Shido and you fight him, and he has like a 5-stage boss fight, the best fucking boss battle song. Rivers in the Desert is a fucking banger of all bangers. And in the original game, I died to Shido multiple times, kicked his ass in Royal. I loved how satisfying it was to just destroy him. At this point in the game, I figured out the perfect team to use. It was Makoto, Haru, and Ryuji. And you kick his ass, and he has a change of heart, and then for some reason, no one believes it. Well, it's not that I don't believe it, but the whole public in general is like, hey, wasn't that kind of weird? Did you see it on the news yesterday? That was pretty fucking weird. And the reason for this, apparently, is that Mementos has been corrupted by something. You don't know what it is. And this is where you go to the 8th palace, the bottom of Mementos. Very fun palace. At this point in the game, I was so overleveled that I basically shredded through the entire thing. Hard contrast to the original game, where I would just randomly die to shadows at times if I didn't pay attention. You're going down to the bottom of hell, basically. Like, that's where you're going. And it's a very eerie atmosphere, very cool. And you meet the Holy Grail, which is like the treasure of humanity, but it ends up being alive, actually, the whole time. And it's very hard to destroy, and it kicks your ass. And once you go to the real world, it fuses with Mementos. And now Mementos and the real world are one. So ideas become reality. Anyway, you get to see all your teammates die in front of your eyes and disappear into nothingness, and then you do. Pretty sweet.